It's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's start with some morally repugnant depravity on CNN. Here they interview Taylor Lorenz, a far-left hack journalist who's been employed by many of your favourite lefty outlets, from the Washington Post, the New York Times to Daily Beast. Listen here as Taylor waxes lyrical about cold-blooded murdering scumbag Luigi Mangione. She can't understand why anyone would be shocked that sickos like her are standing a murderer. This is sick. Sociopathic.
Hilarious to see these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer when this is the United States of America, as if we don't lionize criminals. You're going to see women especially that feel like, oh my God, right? Like, here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems this morally good man, which is hard to find.
She's talking there about a cowardly killer who shot father of two, Brian Thompson, in the back of the head. But because Brian was the CEO of United Healthcare, apparently that makes his murder okay, or even joyful, as Taylor once claimed. Now, sane journalists on a sane network might challenge what we just heard, but not CNN, not this clown from CNN. Listen here as he likens admiring a murdering lowlife to being a Trump supporter, and even notes that Taylor would never want to be called a Trump supporter. That would be beyond the pale.
I'm sure you wouldn't like to be compared to a Trump supporter, but some of how people cannot understand why people have sympathies for Mangione strikes me as the same as a lot of media not understanding why people support Trump.
I totally agree.
I've said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it again. You don't hate the leftist media enough. You think you do, but you don't. Sticking with CNN, they've been part of a media meltdown over the Trump administration's tariff policy, and many a Democrat has been on with softball interviews where they scaremonger about inflation without any pushback from the host. Here's Hakeem Jeffries.
Trump tariffs are going to raise costs on everyday Americans in an environment where there's already a high cost of living. Trump promised that he would lower costs, in fact, on day one, but what we've seen under his reckless leadership is that costs aren't going down in America. They're going up. Inflation is going up.
Inflation is going up, is it? The Democrats were even pushing a new term, Trumpflation. Here is Jeff Merkley.
So last Wednesday, it was not Liberation Day. It was Trumpflation Day. The American consumer is going to see much higher prices.
Trumpflation, you say? Literally minutes later, this news broke.
Breaking moments ago, brand new numbers showing inflation fell last month. Much better than expected. Inflation
fell. Well, how about that, folks? You know, the only reason anyone not stuck at an airport watches CNN these days is to see Scott Jennings. Here he is with CNN host Abby Phillips.
7 million means that they're not just going after criminals.
Well, they're going after people who are in the country illegally, right?
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying the criminals, this is a much bigger universe.
Doesn't that make you a criminal?
No, it doesn't.
To come across the border illegally?
Coming into the country illegally is a civil offense. It's not a criminal offense.
Okay, if you come into the country illegally, here's the message. We're going to find you and send you back.
Oh, Abby, coming across the border illegally is a criminal offence. Let's have a look at Scott Jennings now, effortlessly toying with Ana Navarro. Talk about an intellectual mismatch.
Honestly, if it was Kamala Harris behaving this way, they'd call her hormonal and hysterical, right? Look.
Well, you'd have to get elected to be.
But, well, yes, and if she had been elected and if Hillary Clinton had been elected, if any woman had been elected and been acting this way, they'd say it was menopause.
She would have never stood up to China, so I think this is a mood issue, right?
No.
And let's check in with one of Anna's co-hosts on The View. Here's Whoopi Goldberg. She seems to think that the Trump administration, you know, the one that won in a landslide, winning every swing state, winning the popular vote, winning the Electoral College 312 to 226, apparently, according to Whoopi, they only represent a very narrow band of people.
All you countries who watch us, this is not our wish.
No, it's not.
This is not what the American people want. We don't like it. We don't like how it's being, we don't like how this is being done. That's why you will hear us kvetching about this as long as we are able, because no one we're talking to understands what's going on, and therefore, when they say America, they're not talking about us. They are talking about that very narrow band of America that they think they represent.
Back to CNN. This is how you handle an interview with CNN, especially if they start quoting another fake news outlet like the Washington Post. Let's hear from Senior Director for Counterterrorism, Dr. Sebastian Gorka.
Last month, the Washington Post reported that the freeze on U.S. foreign assistance in Africa has, quote, threatened programs intended to counter al-Shabaab bomb makers. Are those cuts still in place? Are you concerned about them at all?
Is that the same Washington Post that propagated the Russia-Russia collusion hoax for the last 8 years?
Well, regardless of the Russia...
No, not regardless. You're quoting the Washington Post to me, which is as effective as posting for me or quoting to me any other pillar of the fake news industrial complex. I really couldn't care less what the Washington Post or the New York Times says, especially when it's anonymous government officials. If it's true, put your name to it. If it's not, shut up.
There you go. And here is how Donald Trump handled the media overnight. First, he reminded them that his predecessor never did impromptu press conferences.
You people requested. I'm always available, unlike Biden. Think Biden would do an interview at 2 in the morning? He wouldn't do one at 9 in the morning.
And he then got his granddaughter, Kai, involved, first introducing her to the members of the fake news media. I've got to say, he really is the funniest president we've ever had.
Kai, come on over here. You know the fake news? This is the fake news.
Hey, what's up, everyone? How are you guys? Good morning.
Good morning. We're just doing a little news conference. You want to partake?
I mean, I'll add to some stuff.
She's a great athlete, actually, great golfer.
Yeah.
And great student, actually. So go ahead. Any other questions?
On Monday, you're having a meeting with the president of El Salvador.
Now, Donald Trump was at the UFC over the weekend and he walked out to a thunderous response from the Miami crowd, flanked by 2 of his grandchildren.
And making the entrance right now to a standing ovation, the 47th President of the United States of America, flanked by UFC CEO Dana White and others, Donald J. Trump.
Is there anybody else that has a walk-in other than a fighter? I mean, he has some music, Kid Rock starts playing.
He had one at the NCAA tournament too. He always gets a walk-out.
Trump not only got a rock star entrance, but he had sporting stars flocking to shake his hand, including UFC champ Dominic Reyes, moments after his big win. Even Shaq, the great Shaquille O'Neal, made his way through the crowd to greet the president. Let's bring in comedian and host of Primetime with Alex Stein on Blaze TV. Alex, can you remember seeing anything like this? A politician that is reviled by the media but loved by sporting crowds, whether it's at the football, the NASCARs or the UFC?
Well, I mean, Donald Trump is the ultimate celebrity, and when you see him walk into that stadium and the place just goes nuts, you know, it makes you feel warm inside as an American citizen, having a president that is not only all the way there, you know, mentally, but he's all the way there when it comes to the support of the country. And you know what I love the most about this, Rita, is I saw Barstool Sports founder Dave Portnoy, who had complained all week about his stock portfolio going down, posting a video of him being a huge fangirl for President Trump. So he has that effect on people. Somebody can lose $7 million in 1 week, and then when you see him, your tune changes, and all of a sudden you love the guy again.
Well, there was an awkward moment, we just saw it before, where Trump seemed to ignore actress Cheryl Hines, the wife of RFK Jr. There was plenty of media coverage of this moment, but that's not the full story, Alex. President Trump did go back and he had a chat with Cheryl. He's not snubbing her as many have claimed.
Well, Rita, it's obvious that Trump did this on purpose. When you look at Cheryl Hines, considering that she was Larry David's co-star on a show that's all about being awkward, Donald Trump did this on purpose. This awkward moment went super viral, and this was not an accident. So, be careful what you think about Donald Trump. No, this is the best marketing tool possible for Donald Trump. That snub was the snub heard around the world, Rita. It was great.
No, he was just not looking at her when she had her hand outstretched. I'm sure there was a very innocent. He's got no problem with Cheryl Hines. She's actually been incredibly brave in standing up to the Hollywood bullies, because they did come for her when RFK Jr. first announced that he was going to be part of the Trump camp. Now let's talk about more serious stuff. The president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, is in the US. El Salvador is housing in its mega prisons a number of gangbangers in the US illegally. Tell me about the relationship he has with the Trump administration.
Well, the president of El Salvador is similar to Donald Trump in that he's no nonsense, and he wants to get rid of all the gangbangers, not only in his country, but here in America. He wants to kind of be like a private prison, third-party system where we can put a lot of these Trinidad Arugas or MS-13 gangbangers. We can just send them down to El Salvador, and we can pay them to house them. So, I love the idea of outsourcing our prisons to El Salvador. So this meeting, it could spell trouble for the cartels and the organized crime that is, causing a lot of problems here in America.
I got to tell you, this guy is one of the most popular leaders anywhere in the world. He was re-elected with such an enormous margin, and he has turned El Salvador from one of the most crime-riddled hellholes anywhere in the world to a safe country, and he's done it in with such speed. It really is a remarkable feat, but the media hates him too, so he never gets any credit for any of that. Also in the White House in recent days, Alex, has been the governor of Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer. She's got ambitions of being the 2028 Democrat presidential candidate. But tell me about this performance here, Alex, trying to hide her face during a meeting with President Donald Trump in the Oval Office. I mean, it just looks juvenile.
Oh, Governor Whitmer is the biggest embarrassment when it comes to not just only her state, but when Michigan was locked down, her husband got caught taking their boat down to the boat dock when everybody else was shut down. When it comes to Whitmer, she did that weird, publicity stunt where she fed the girl the milk and the Doritos chips. So she's not one to shy away from having her face in front of a camera. So for her to do this is just another political stunt, an embarrassment, and it shows you a politician that doesn't want to try to reach across the aisle to try to get things done for her constituents. Instead, she hides her face because she's ashamed and she's a coward of who she really is.
Well, I remember back in the height of the COVID era, Governor Whitmer, whilst Florida was completely open and free, Texas, where you are, was open and free, she was locking down seeds. She didn't want anyone to be planting seeds in their garden to grow vegetables, like just some really bizarre COVID restrictions coming from that governor. Now, let's talk about Doge. There's another expose by the Department of Government Efficiency. Let's see how many social security numbers have been issued to illegal immigrants.
The Immigration Department mailed them a social security number. No interview, no proof of identity. Just put it in the mail. Here's your number. In 2021, Doge says 270,000 new aliens were issued Social Security numbers, 590,000 in 2022, 964,000 in 2023, and 2.1 million in 24, right before Biden left office. Doge also discovered that 1.3 million aliens are now receiving Medicaid.
2.1 million just in 2024. Those numbers are astounding, Alex.
Well, people want to say it's conspiracy, but it's obvious that they wanted to try to import as many people possible so that they could influence future elections. And by giving that many Social Security numbers, making it accessible to vote for these illegal immigrants, I just think that that's obviously what they were doing. So I'm happy that that now is going to stop. And it needs to go back to the good old days when it was 90-day fiancé. You had to marry an ugly person to become an American citizen. You didn't just get a free green card and access to, vote in future elections.
Well, yeah, we'll go back to those heady days. Before you go, I'm really shocked that this story has got barely any coverage. This is a remarkable story. We've got an American, a Russian American, a beautiful ballerina freed in a prisoner exchange, and yet barely any coverage, perhaps because when she was freed, she made the point of thanking Donald Trump.
What's your message for the president?
Mr. Trump, I'm so grateful for you to bring me home and for American government. And I never felt more blessed to be American, and I'm so happy to get home. Thank you.
Welcome home.
Alex, she was sentenced to 12 years in a Russian prison after pleading guilty to treason, all for donating just around $50 to a Ukrainian charity in early 2024. This is a feel-good story. How is this story not being getting saturation coverage?
Well, Rita, I'm surprised it's not, because I've been very critical of the Ukrainian war, but I'll be honest, Vladimir Putin throws journalists off buildings. Russia is not innocent when it comes to this horrible conflict that's happening. So Russia needs to step up and end this war, and so does the Ukrainians and Vladimir Zelensky. And I'm happy that she's free. For $50 to the Ukraine to be jailed for 12 years, absolutely ridiculous.
Shocking. Alex Stein, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Rita.